There we go. So thank you for joining. And obviously the relationship with Murdoch Webster Technology Group in Palo Alto is quite a strong one, being one of 3 only CSSP partners within the Asia-Pac region means we're one of the main partners to go to from professional services for anything around Palo Alto, which is brilliant. And we love working with them. So Matt Berry, we're very lucky to have Matt on the call today. He's from Sydney, and don't hold that against him. But he's dialing in from New South Wales, and he's probably one of the most highly regarded SDN and SD WAN engineers that we know. He's been in the industry for over 20 years. Is that you, Leisha? Do you want to mute,
yes,
honey?
Yeah. Okay, so the meeting room was
I know.
Oh, hang on. Who's not muted?
Sorry, LT, it's not me.
No, hang on. There we go. Now we'll keep you open. Artie, it's Artie. Artie, mute, mate. There we go. Gizman, might be you. Hang on. There we go. Gizman's the culprit. Righto. There's a prize for you at the end, Gizman. Now, where was I? So Matt's been in the industry for over 20 years. So he's got a lot of experience selling SDN and SD-WAN. 3 years previously with another vendor, and we're very lucky to have him with Palo Alto now. And about to give us the showcase and rundown on Prisma SD-WAN. So I'll hand over to you, Matt, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Leanne, and thanks for having me on. Good to meet everyone virtually. Yeah, as Leanne said, I've had a bit of exposure to SD-WAN in the past. Worked for a different vendor selling SD-WAN. I've also been a solutions engineer on the SDN side as well. So networking has always been my passion, and yeah, SD-WAN is an amazing, I guess, evolution of networking. We're certainly seeing a lot more focus on security as well. So great to be here at Palo Alto Networks. It's only my 4th month here with Palo Alto Networks, but yeah, we're certainly seeing a lot of interest and a lot of activity around our SD-WAN solution. So I'm a specialist engineer covering both our SD-WAN and security, cloud-hosted security solutions. So SASE, Secure Access Services Edge, is my title. So what I'll do today is, I guess, go through sort of the challenges facing us, as organizations trying to deliver IT to customers and to our own staff, and then go through a bit of background on sort of the evolution of networking, and then finish off with, what is Prisma SD-WAN, how does it work, and actually do a live demo for you as well. So in terms of where we are today and the challenges, this is probably not new to anyone on this call. There's been a huge shift into digitization of just about everything. There's an app for everything. There's a website for everything these days. We're almost seeing paper disappear entirely. And the applications that provide all of these services are anywhere. They're mostly in the cloud, but delivered on all sorts of different platforms, SaaS, IaaS, PaaS, you name it. There's a cloud-hosted option for pretty much every application you have today. And so many of our customers that we're talking to are really on that journey, and some have actually completely moved to the cloud. No more private data centers, whereas others are still on that transformation. And then our users, the customers, third parties, IoT devices, they can also be anywhere. Gone are the days when you had a perimeter, and a network that you managed and controlled to keep, a lid on all of this access. Now access can be from home. It can be from a cafe. It can be from, anywhere where you have a phone, just about. So, that's the challenge. If we look at what the network has been doing over the last few years, or last few decades even, MPLS has served us very well. MPLS being a private network for our users sitting in remote sites to access private data centers, privately hosted applications. MPLS does a great job. But then as the applications have moved, as we're seeing more focus on cloud delivered applications, sorry, I'm going to silence my phone here. As that is more and more of a shift to the internet and to cloud-hosted apps, MPLS, is now a path which is effectively an expensive network being used to reach a cheaper network. It's the bandwidth that you get with MPLS is quite precious, but a lot of the traffic that's going over that these days is actually being sent to the internet anyway. Then if you look at public cloud, IaaS, infrastructure as a service facilities, to get to those across MPLS, you're often looking at paying for an expensive direct connect or an express route from your existing data center. Mobile users, a lot of mobile users are still VPNing into the data center, into a firewall or a VPN concentrator, only to have that traffic turned back around and sent to the internet. Most applications these days, most of what our users are consuming, especially with Office 365, and we no longer connect to an Exchange server in the data center anymore. It's very rare now. So most traffic from a mobile user is actually going back out to the public internet. So you end up with this issue where you've got excessive load on the data center firewalls, and that link that you have, or one or more links to the internet. You end up getting congestion there. You're using the internet traffic is consuming very precious and expensive MPLS bandwidth. That makes applications slower. So if users are actually trying to reach applications in the cloud, they're being sent through multiple networks and potentially choke points in the data center as the traffic transits that environment. And it really does make it hard to leave the data center. The whole point of cloud is that you should be able to host all of your applications, host all of that content that users are trying to get to outside of your environment. It shouldn't be your problem to solve. So getting out of the data center becomes very difficult if it's still the primary form of transit out to the internet. So SD-WAN addresses that issue by firstly making better use of the bandwidth that's there. So you can add an internet service into remote sites. MPLS is still has value. It still provides a service, but you can actually supplement that bandwidth with direct internet. These both become underlays. They become a transit network to reach the applications in the data center. Also, because these IaaS services are all on the public internet, you can use now the internet that you've connected in remote sites to reach these IaaS services. You've taken away the dependency on this direct connect or express route in the data center. And then users accessing web-based applications, SaaS applications, their experience is a lot better. That's a more direct path to those applications. So you end up with this overlay. It's effectively a new network, takes care of routing, takes care of path selection, finding the best path to reach these other destinations. So this overlay, the idea of it is it should be able to run on any underlay. You should be able to choose whether it's a private network, public network, whether it be a wired connection or wireless with 4G and 5G, to run this overlay. Prisma SD WAN is there to provide that SD-WAN overlay. We have ION appliances, it stands for Instant On Network Appliance, available as a physical device to be deployed into branches. We have a zero-touch deployment, so the device can be shipped directly from Palo Alto Networks. Someone doesn't need to actually configure the device before it gets to the site. It can be plugged in and provisioned and configured over the internet. We have virtual IONs as well. So in the Amazon Marketplace, in Google Cloud's Marketplace, and in Azure, you can simply spin up a virtual ION to provide an additional site or a node, if you like, on this SD-WAN overlay. So this ION running in Amazon or in Azure or Google Cloud looks just like any other site. It's managed the same way. It's provisioned in much the same way. So that access into those private VPCs is very easy now. It's all done through the one overlay on any underlay. So now the question is, well, how do I secure that traffic? How do I ensure that my users that now have internet access, either from the branch or mobile users, if you're trying to get away from the VPN concentrator or the firewall, how do I ensure that that access is secure? So one of the key features that we offer as part of Prisma SD WAN, or as a solution that you add on to Prisma SD WAN, but as part of the Palo Alto Networks offering, is Prisma Access. Prisma Access is a cloud-hosted firewall as a service solution. We leverage cloud scale, cloud compute to do TLS decryption on the traffic that passes through. We can sandbox, we can do threat prevention, content filtering, data loss prevention. We can even filter DNS to ensure that there's no data being exfiltrated via DNS. That's a fairly popular attack method these days. And that allows you as our customer to build a zero trust network access solution. You can actually send all traffic through Prisma Access, regardless of the destination. It could be going to your private data center, to the public cloud. It could be mobile users, coming in through Prisma Access to reach SaaS or web applications. So this becomes a valid path, or another path available, as well as the SD-WAN overlay. Direct internet is also still available, but that's all controlled by policy. So the policy is controlled centrally. There's an SD-WAN portal. The portal I will log into soon. I'll show you how that policy works and how that what sort of capabilities we have in that portal. But from that one portal, you can actually build a policy to send all traffic through Prisma Access for further inspection. Or you may send most traffic through there, but maybe some traffic goes direct over the SD-WAN overlay. That's still an encrypted path, but just without the additional next-gen firewalling. You can also route directly to the underlay. So you may choose to route directly into MPLS or direct to the internet for very specific applications in that case. So I'm going to pause there and just see if there's any questions on that architecture. I know all of you have been muted, but I think you can unmute yourself.
I was going to suggest as well, guys, if you want to pose any questions in the chat, I know people get a little bit shy in these forums. So if you'd like to put any questions in the chat, I'll make sure to interrupt. Here's one. Is Prisma SD WAN required for Prisma Access?
No, it's not. So actually I show on this diagram, you can use a regular firewall to connect to Prisma Access. But one of the benefits of using Prisma SD WAN to connect to Prisma Access is that firstly, you get multiple VPNs automatically. So if you have 2 internet links, you'll automatically get 2 VPNs into Prisma Access, and the Prisma SD WAN device will find the best path. It'll check that those paths are available and there's no congestion, and it will actually load share across those paths. You could have more than 2. You might even have 4G as another path. So it would build a third tunnel. We also automate the build of these tunnels. So these blue lines here between the SD-WAN appliance and the Prisma Access node, there is a direct API integration, so that all you need to do is tag the site, and I'll show you this in the demo later. I just need to tag each site that I want to connect to Prisma Access, and this tunnel or set of tunnels is built automatically. A BGP peering is built automatically. Equal cost multipath is also turned on automatically. So you'll get an automatic build of multiple tunnels with load sharing, whereas to do that from a firewall, it requires a lot more work. It's a more manual process. So using SD-WAN to do that access or provide that access is going to give you the cleanest solution operationally. The second benefit actually is this site doesn't actually need a full firewall. You can actually keep the site or branch configuration fairly thin, fairly lightweight. The SD-WAN appliance, is providing that traffic steering or application path steering. It's providing all the tunnel build out. It does provide some local security as well, but it means operationally it's very easy to manage each remote site. You're not having to think about the firewall that's out there. Is it running the latest software? Does it have all the capabilities I need? Is it configured correctly? It keeps that branch site fairly thin. Any more
Matt,
questions?
just on that, there's a lot of, sorry, I'll jump in, and it's a silly Leanne question because obviously I'm not that technical, but a lot of customers that I speak to are not necessarily thinking they need SD-WAN. So what would Prisma look like if they're not going down the SD-WAN route?
Well, the difference is that you're going to have potentially a firewall or some device. You are going to still need some device at each remote site to connect to Prisma Access. The most integrated device is a Prisma SD-WAN appliance. If you do decide not to use that, if you have just a regular firewall or some other VPN device to connect to Prisma Access, then it's a more manual build. You're going to spend more time and effort building and configuring that access into Prisma Access. What I'll also cover today.
It sounds like it works better hand in hand, obviously. Yeah.
Exactly, that's right. The two are designed. In fact, the reason why Palo Alto Networks acquired CloudGenix is the actual SD-WAN solution that became Prisma SD-WAN. We acquired CloudGenix April last year. The reason was because they already had this integration built. They already had the API integration built, so that all you needed to do was turn on the SD-WAN solution, set a tag, and immediately you had that connection into Prisma Access. Palo Alto Networks also use Prisma SD-WAN, what was CloudGenix. We use that ourselves to connect all of our offices globally. So we're already drinking our own champagne or eating our own dog food, depending on which metaphor you prefer. And I guess the
first
other
one, honey. Go with the first one.
Yeah, it does sound a lot nicer, doesn't it? And I guess the other key benefit too is that from the SD-WAN side, you do get a lot of application visibility. So I'll go through that a bit later on. It's something that firewalls do struggle with, is providing enough granularity and visibility into how well applications are performing. Not just whether there's packet loss or whether there's latency issues, but whether the application itself is performing well. And we can provide a fair bit of that directly in the SD-WAN solution. So some of the use cases that we're seeing, the key one is finding the best path or having fast failover or even link bonding. So when there's MPLS and internet or multiple internet paths, it's really important that you have a solution that can find the best path and very quickly react to a change in conditions. So if your business is about point of sale, or your users are taking phone calls from customers, then it's really important that you have a reliable network. So SD-WAN can deliver that, and Prisma SD-WAN will deliver that reliable network. Another use case is direct access to cloud. That's an obvious one. Using the internet at remote sites will give your users a much better experience accessing the cloud. Then obviously Prisma Access can provide very good security for that access. Transforming the network, so moving away from just MPLS, just one link at each site, moving to using internet as well as MPLS, or 4G and 5G. It's really important to have some diversity in that connection type, and even diversity in the carriage and the carrier that provides those services. Another really strong use case for Prisma SD-WAN is to pinpoint application performance issues. We provide very detailed reports on applications and how well they're performing, and I'll cover that in the demo a bit later on. Rapid deployment. So if you have a business where you are standing up retail stores, they might be pop-up stores, or you need to put them into a shopping center very quickly, or you say maybe you're in construction, you have the need to stand up a site office rapidly. SD-WAN makes that really easy. You simply deploy the SD-WAN appliance, plug in a 4G device, plug in a DSL service if it's available, or an NBN connection, and away you go. That will then join the network. It'll use the internet. It'll use the 4G service, whatever's available, to connect back to the data center, connect to Prisma Access, to connect through to the cloud. We offer some pretty cool capabilities. So the ability to actually steer traffic based on the application performance. That's pretty rare in SD-WAN. Most SD-WAN will steer traffic based on packet loss or jitter or latency. What we do is we look at that, as well as For SaaS applications, maybe where you don't have another Ion appliance in the cloud, we also look at how successful a client has been in making a connection to the app. So if that client machine had 5 connection attempts that all failed to a particular app over a particular path, then the Prisma SD WAN solution will flag that path as bad. Or if multiple users are having problems reaching an app over a particular path, we'll flag that path as bad. And as I said, we'll have a bit of a session on the analytics, what we can show in terms of application performance. We also have a zone-based firewall. So that's a stateful firewall, really good for east-west firewalling, so local site-based firewalling. It's application aware, so you can match on things like BitTorrent or someone trying to share or reach a file share, for example, in another one of these zones. And then for north-south firewalling, that's simply done through Prisma Access. That's all offloaded to the cloud. You get the latest and greatest features there. We can obviously do a lot around link redundancy. We have device HA as well. We do zero-touch deployment, as I covered earlier. The device can go straight to the site, be plugged into the internet, and then configured and provisioned from the portal. There's no need for a user to actually plug in a console cable. And we can deliver a thin branch, so an easy to manage, lightweight branch environment with all of the more complex stuff done in the cloud. So the 3 things, I guess, that differentiate Prisma SD WAN, the first being the app visibility and path selection based on that application analysis. We have very tight integration into cloud-delivered security as a service. We also have integrations into other solutions as well. So ServiceNow is a good example. We can automatically raise tickets when there's an event or a fault. And we also provide a way to realize a very rapid return on investment. So to actually use any underlay and actually seamlessly aggregate or swap out networks as needed as part of a transformation project. Gartner, they run a peer insights service, and each SD-WAN vendor is reviewed on there, and our customers and peers of those customers can go on there and rate the solution. And our SD-WAN solution is actually ranked #1. So we actually got Customer's Choice Award of 2021. We got the highest score of all, 5 out of 5 with 149 reviews. And 99% of our customers said they'd be willing to recommend us to other customers. So yeah, that's available on the Gartner website. If you just search for peer insights, you'll come to this page where you can actually look at the report, or you can look at the actual reviews themselves. We're also recognized as a leader in the Magic Quadrant last year by Gartner. Palo Alto Networks has been a leader in the Magic Quadrant for firewalls for the last 9 years. We're recognized for our completeness of vision, ability to execute, and #1, as I said, on the peer insights. So yeah, Gartner's recognized the big focus and big push to SD-WAN, and so have our customers. We actually have customers across a lot of different verticals. So in Australia, we have a large industrial customer that's realized some MPLS cost savings with increased WAN capacity. We have a large, this is actually a large bank that reduced their trouble tickets by 99%. So with our SD-WAN solution, the Prisma SD-WAN solution, we correlate faults. So if one box goes down, at a major site, it might bring down a whole lot of VPNs. What you don't want to have is 100 trouble tickets for every one of those VPNs that's affected by that one outage. So on the SD-WAN side, we actually correlate all of those individual issues into one ticket, one fault, reducing the total number of tickets that this customer saw. We also have a large retailer. This is a popular sports brand that's very large globally, actually. They're in the thousands of sites, but for every 100 sites, they realized $550,000 in OPEX savings per year. And that was by removing the individual devices they had doing firewalling, doing routing, and other functions at every site, And they also were able to manage the configuration of every device from the portal without needing to actually have CCIEs on staff to manage complex router configuration. Any questions on that before I move into some of our specific features? Just checking the chat. Here we go. Cinefer. So I can't show you a Cinefer demo just yet. We have an integration already built into our, we have a portal, actually, it's called a Prisma Access Cloud portal. I can actually show you the landing page in there, but the data is all synthetic at the moment. I don't have an actual demo. But yeah, we certainly are building a lot around Cinefer, and I have some slides on that later. I'll cover that. Prisma Access appliance as a local firewall for east-west traffic. What size environment is this viable for? So, good question, Tim. So Prisma Access is available on a firewall. So you can actually deploy a regular PAN firewall. You can turn on the Prisma Access function. That becomes what we call a Prisma Access gateway. And that can then also be used for east-west firewalling. That really becomes viable for larger environments, campus networks, or large, let's say a law firm, for example, that might have 4 floors in a building. Once you need to do next-gen firewalling in a branch. So remember that the SD-WAN, the Prisma SD-WAN appliance can do firewalling. It's application aware. You can build zones. It just can't do next-gen firewalling. It can't do payload inspection. It can't do anti-malware or data loss prevention. So once you get that requirement at a site, and it doesn't have to be a big site, really, I guess. It could just be a site with very sensitive data. I know of a customer that was developing some very confidential intellectual property, and they were very worried about it being stolen. So in their case, they needed next-gen firewalling in every site. So in that case, a full firewall was needed. You can also run a regular PAN firewall or any firewall on the LAN side of the SD-WAN appliance. So you do your firewalling at the site, east-west firewalling, next-gen firewalling, and then for WAN access, internet access, you put an SD-WAN, a Prisma SD-WAN appliance. We have customers that have done that as well. Hopefully that answered your question, Tim. Any other questions? All right, I'll cover off some of the features that we discussed a little bit earlier, actually. So the event correlation is very strong with our solution. So the ability to turn multiple alarms from multiple VPNs into one single ticket. So one event. That event can then be pushed out to ServiceNow or another tool that you might integrate with. So that really reduces the operational overhead of managing your network. I can hear someone going up the stairs. Is that you, Leanne?
Yeah, it's the dogs.
All right. The other key feature, and I'll show you this actually in the demo. Most SD-WAN solutions today will report on link loss, jitter, and latency, but not many actually go further into the application performance. So the sort of second generation of SD-WAN, the latest generation of SD-WAN, is providing a lot more around app performance, how well the server response time looks relative to the network response time. So Prisma SD-WAN is definitely a generation 2 SD-WAN in that it provides a lot more detail in application performance. So I'll run a quick demo now of that. So this is the still branded CloudGenix SD-WAN portal, soon to be branded Prisma SD-WAN. And what we're looking at here is the activity tab. So we're in the activity section. Here we have a filter on the left side, so I can filter my application set. So I'm actually filtering here just for the top 10 applications. But I can say, top applications by failure, by flow, for audio and video traffic and so on, I can filter as well. I can also filter to the site level. So in this demo environment, we have 3 sites. So I've got New York. Any Blues Brothers fans out there will know what 1060 West. Oh, it's actually East Addison. 1060 West Addison was the was Wrigley Field in the Blues Brothers. So the filter here then determines what I can see in terms of the reports. So on the right-hand side, I've got my usual what's consuming my bandwidth report. But here's where it gets interesting. So if I look at the transaction statistics for one of the apps, and I've chosen Google here as an example, I can see that in general, things are going pretty well. There's a lot of init connections. There's a lot of transactions that have been successful, but there's also been some failures. In this case, we've had 2 failures. I can actually then drill down to figure out exactly where those failures are. So we can see the failed connection events. There's actually been a number of app unreachable events as well. But we can see here there's been failure events for that. And if I go to, say, my point of sale, actually in my view here, I don't have point of sale. I think the data that went through this graph recently, we had a little bit more data coming from other sources. So I'm just going to change that, update that graph. And so now, yeah, this is probably a good example too. So Office 365, we can see there's been quite a number of failures there. And I can drill down for this traffic and actually see exactly where those failures have occurred. So we can see there's been 180 failures to this particular subnet. You could ring Microsoft, I'm sure, and say to them, we've had problems reaching these networks. I'm not sure if you'll get much of a result out of that, but it's certainly very good for any apps that you host or you manage. So in this case, the point of sale app, we can see there's been quite a number of failures there. And we can see that that's occurring specifically to this host address. So that device or server that is hosting this application is the one that's having the problem. So you're very quickly able to drill down and find the source of a connection failure issue. You can also break that out into specific connection types. So on the left here, we've got all the different WAN types. I could also ask for the different circuit types or paths. But see, you can see here that the green is showing us that overall the connectivity has been good, but direct to internet hasn't been that good for this particular Office 365. If I look at, let's have a look at Office 365 now in terms of the application response. So I'll just drill down to that. Now here we can see that the round trip time, the green line, is probably the source of our issue. We've got it fluctuating quite a bit. It's going from 100 milliseconds up to as bad as 300 milliseconds. The actual server response time, the brown line there, is actually pretty good. It's staying below that network round trip time. Conversely, if I look at the point of sale app, clearly the app developer didn't do a very good job, or maybe they were given pretty bad old hardware to run it on. But you can see here the server response time is really bad. It's sitting in the 3,000, 4,000 millisecond range, while the network response time is actually pretty good. So as a network engineer, I've been one all my career. I used to be in an operations team working for a telco and then working for a customer. And the network gets blamed first when there's a performance issue. We do have to have what we call this graph, actually, we call this the mean time to innocence graph. So it reduces that mean time to innocence, so you can actually prove that it's not the network, this is the server that's the problem. So that's a fairly unique feature. To do this normally with any sort of analysis tool, you normally need to deploy a separate probe. You often have to bookend the solution. You have to have an agent or something running in the data center. In our case, you don't need to bookend this. You don't need a bookend to get this graph. So this graph is determined by looking at the success of the client connection and the responsiveness of that client connection. And it's done to any application. It doesn't have to be in the data center or where there's another Ion appliance. can be to any web-based application. The other thing you'll get in the reports is reporting on voice and video. So if we just limit this to real time, the RTP stream, we can see how much bandwidth is being consumed by that RTP protocol. We can see packet loss for RTP and over the different link types. And we also have a MOS score. So you can get a clear picture on how well that voice is performing across your network. And again, you can remove different paths to see or drill down to see where the problem actually lies. And same for video. So if you have Teams or Google Hangouts or any of those, or Zoom, any of those video applications, then we, as long as we can get to the actual video stream, then we can report on how well that video traffic is going. We have all the usual link quality metrics, and this does require a bookend. So where we have another ION appliance, you can pick a circuit and get a report for how well that circuit is behaving. I might need to choose one that's actually got traffic on it. I probably should have chosen one to the data center, actually. Let me just do that. Let's do this one here. So we can see here that the traffic from my site in New York to the data center isn't doing that well. We've got quite a bit of latency fluctuation, jitter, and packet loss. Now, these reports are pretty standard. You'll see this on most SD-WAN solutions, but it's the application level reports that you won't get on most SD-WAN solutions. We also report right down to the flow level. And again, this is also very hard to find in other solutions. In fact, most other solutions, you really need to run a packet capture before you see this level of detail. Whereas with our solution, you get this out of the box. And it's probably the closest thing to a packet capture. It's getting you the level of detail you need without actually having to run a packet capture on the device. I used this recently for a customer. This was a new customer of ours, and they had a lot of connection failures to devices on the LAN. So these were client machines on the LAN. And the source of all the connection failures was other devices on other LANs in their network. So it was very odd that there was all this peer-to-peer traffic or client-to-client traffic. And we quickly came across to the flow view to then we're able to filter down to the port, the TCP or UDP port that we'd found. And then we could actually see that those connections on that port were actually for a Microsoft peer-to-peer software distribution. And it had been misconfigured because the connections weren't actually being established, they were failing. But so here you get, a lot of detail. You get the actual path that the traffic took across the network. You get the QoS rule that was applied. You get the actual QoS, where is that here? You can actually see the, you can see which QoS priority was set on the application, any security policies that were applied, the WAN path that was used, and then things like the packets that were seen and the number of retransmits. So we can see very quickly that there's been issues with this particular server responding to the client. So as I said before, that's a level of detail that you wouldn't normally see from a normal SD-WAN solution.
Matt, just conscious of time as well, just for the people on the call, do you have an idea of what we're covering in the next 5 minutes or so? And
yeah, look, we're
how much more
pretty
time
much
you need?
done. The demo, I'll skip the CloudBlades demo. That's an ability to connect into other third-party solutions. We have obviously Prisma Access is one of the primary ones, but you can also use the CloudBlade architecture to connect, make an API connection into other solutions. I mentioned ServiceNow. You can connect into Splunk. We have CloudBlades to connect and get data from other cloud solutions. and other collaboration platforms. We've also added one for Cradlepoint. So to pull in telemetry or signal strength from Cradlepoint, we have a Cloud Blade for that. We also have one for provisioning into Amazon, so connecting into Transit Gateway. The other one is the zone-based firewall. So one of our customers actually recently did this. They changed or moved from having iOS-based routers in every site, which had 2,000 lines of ACLs, access list statements. They moved to a zone-based firewall using the SD WAN Ion appliance, and that was transformed into just 20 rules because their environment was complex. They had a voice zone, a point of sale, an IoT zone. They also had 3 different types of connectivity that were allowed from each of those zones. Their normal policy was quite large. So we have that built into the solution. So if we go and look at the way the policy is applied, I can simply define the policy. The policy is made up of zones. So you can predefine the zones. Here we've got a zone for guest, outside, and WAN. And so I can do things like permit the guest network to reach the corporate WAN, but only for specific source IP addresses and only for our web point of sale application. All other guest traffic would then be denied. So it's very easy just to build those zones and apply the rules in this zone-based firewall policy. So quickly on the hardware, we have a number of different models sized all the way from sort of a small office device with 100 meg throughput all the way up to 10 gig of throughput for the data center, or virtual ions. And those virtual ions can be deployed in a cluster, highly available model, so they can all be active, and you can just simply scale that horizontally. Just to give you an example, there's 4 ports on the smallest device. The largest appliance has quite a lot more ports, 8, 10 gig ports. We actually have fail to wire cards as well. So if you deploy these in HA, in high availability, you can actually bring in a WAN service into one of these ports. If the port fails, a relay closes and it can electrically connect that WAN service through the other port out to the second device. So you can actually use the fail to wire relays inside the device, so that in HA you don't need a WAN side switch. So there's a question around Cinefer. So Palo Alto Networks acquired Cinefer, which does a really good job of giving you a view of how that user's digital experience is going. Cinefer will actually monitor the LAN performance as well. So it will look at, if you're running the agent, it will actually look at the Wi-Fi performance, to the router. It will also look beyond that and look into the network. So what we're doing with Cinefer, and this is still to come, we're actually adding the Cinefer capability to the SD WAN appliance. So you'll have the SD-WAN, the Prisma SD WAN appliance as a Cinefer network edge. It'll be running the agent. We actually rebranded Cinefer, by the way, to Autonomous Digital Experience Monitoring, or ADEM. So you'll see back on the slide, you'll see ADEM as the new product or new capability there. The Global Protect client. So this is the client that is already used by Palo Alto Networks customers to make a VPN into our firewalls or a VPN to Prisma Access. So this Global Protect agent will also have the Cinefer capability baked into it fairly soon. And there'll be additional probes done from Prisma Access itself. So there'll be, from the actual cloud, we'll probe into SaaS providers and other solutions and actually provide an end-to-end view. So you'll get a view from the device, at various hops along the way through the ISPs, through Prisma Access, and then what you'll have a look, you'll be able to see what Prisma Access can then see into your own data center or into the public cloud. So this will all be baked in and part of the Prisma Access and Prisma SD WAN solution.